deodorant. Ugh, I can't. Secret Clinical with workout sweat. Let's run another marathon. And Dr. McGee's teaching to life. I don't think that's true. I just think so his algorithm isn't showing him people in London shaking butt.
What the? So
So we
shaking
keep
butt.
a Christ-centered perspective on nations and Folklore.com.
And you see, this right here is why I don't listen to the radio, because I feel like it's a bunch of nonsense half the time. Do-do-do-do. There's gonna be one of those people that sleep on their live. But I think I'm gonna do my makeup tomorrow because I haven't done my makeup since the weekend and my eyebrows look like poop. So I gotta do my eyebrows, blah blah blah. The kids have been acting a fool today. I'm just tired. I just wish people would parent their kids because I'm tired of parenting people's kids for them. Um, and it was like really weird today because this little girl, like maybe 30 minutes ago, like all the kids were sitting together, and this little girl tells this other guy, like I guess they were just laughing, having fun, and then she's like, "Oh, you should shoot yourself in the head or like something like that." I don't know. She said some weird shit, and her mom works there. Keep in mind, like mind you, her mom works there, right? Yeah, and it's really awkward because I feel like the people who's like the teachers' kids, those are always like the worst behaved kids for some reason. And I'm like, why can you not just parent your kids like a normal person, right? Because I feel like you're a teacher, so your kid should already be smart. Your kid should already know how to like sit properly on the carpet and listen to directions and blah blah blah, right? Because if you're a teacher, your kid should just know what to do, right? So this little girl said some weird stuff to another boy, and then we had to send her to the office, right? And then we go down the hallway, get her mom, and because the little girl, I guess like they were like all sitting on the carpet together, and the little girl was like, "Oh, you should shoot yourself in the head, ha ha ha." But it's like it was weird because it's like she didn't understand what she herself was saying, right? Because you know how usually kids say things in a mean way or something like that. Well, this little girl said something to the boy, and then we're like, "Why would you say that? Why would you say that?" So we had to like send her to the office, you know. So it's like we sent her to the office, and then the lady, she talked to the little girl, and she was like, "Why would you say that to the little boy? That he should shoot himself in the head? Where did you get that from? Why? Like, where did you hear that, right?" And her mom came and she talked to us, and she was like, "Yeah, I don't know where she heard that from. She probably heard it from the dad, right? Because I guess the dad, when she goes to the dad's house, he stays at home and he's playing video games, right? So I guess like I don't know what video games the dad is playing, maybe like Call of Duty or like some kind of like shooting war games. And you know how men get when they're playing video games, right? They scream or they yell, and they're yelling like violent things, like "I'm gonna kill you," blah blah blah. Whole time they're talking to that like in a video game form. They're not like being for real. But if a kid is in the same room as their dad playing that type of game, the kid is gonna hear that and be like, "Oh, you know, my dad is saying those words. Let me say those words too." And the kid doesn't even know what they mean, you know. So she just repeated those words that her dad said, pretty much. And so now the mom is gonna be pissed at the dad because why do you have your kid around that type of stuff? And sometimes I know it's like a normal environment because sometimes the dad might be playing like on the computer or PlayStation or whatever, and they have like a separate room for it or whatever. But some people don't have like a separate room when they're playing video games, and like you know how kids in general just always follow you around the house. They never like play by themselves or whatever. So she probably just walked into the room, heard her dad saying that stuff over the game. You know, just typical type stuff, right? But I feel like if you're a parent dad or mom, why would you have your kid in the room or like just around you, or why would you like play video games while the kid is awake? Like, why not just wait till they're sleeping, or to like, you know, by themselves, or just eating downstairs, or like something like that, right? So now you got this kid coming to school saying stuff about shooting, knowing damn well the society that we live in today and all the stuff that's going on in the world about shooting stuff, right? All the school shootings. And it's like, usually, like, schools these days take that stuff really seriously, to the point where like some schools are kicking you out when you say stuff like that, right? Like if you go to a public school. So if she's saying this now at daycare, like she needs to be taught that she can't just be saying words like that, right? She's only 5 years old, so she doesn't understand, like, you know, school shootings happen, kids be dying, like, you know, that type of concept. And when you say stuff like that, it could be taken as a threat. So when you're in a public school, you could be sitting chilling, she could be like 6 years old in kindergarten next year, and just say some stuff like that, and then the teachers are going to take it seriously, because there have been instances where the kids have brought weapons to school, and then stuff has happened, even like in kindergarten, first grade, second grade. Like, those kids know everything now because of the internet. So that's why teachers these days, they take threats seriously now. Okay, basically there's like this girl, I work at a daycare, she said something to a little boy, and I guess she said it in like a jokingly way, but she basically said like, oh, you should shoot yourself in the head. And it's like, what kind of like 5-year-old kid says that, right? So she got in trouble for it. But I feel like she didn't know the way that she was saying it, because she said that he called her weird, and then she said that back to him, I guess, as like payback. You know how like kids be going back and forth or whatever, right? So she said that he called her weird. But I feel like when any kid calls you weird, a normal kid's response isn't to say that, you know? Like, usually kids be like, you're weird, no, you're weird, no, you're weird, you know, like that type of thing. But she said that in like a jokingly way, and then he looked at her like, what the heck, you know? So he clearly knows stuff about weapons, and like maybe his older brothers play shooting games and that type stuff, right? So he looked at her like what the fuck. And then we me and the other teachers just happened to hear what she said, you know. So it was just a really weird instance, and I'm hoping, like, now that, I guess, I don't know if her mom explained it to her that you can't be saying stuff like that, because if she says stuff like that, she could get kicked out of kindergarten or whatever next year, because there's been like multiple reports of like literal kindergartners, first grade, second graders, they bring their parents weapons to school, regardless of if it's like a knife or like something else. They bring their parents weapons to school, and then they use it to like attack the teachers or whatever, because, you know, sometimes it's like a bad kid who doesn't listen, so they like use the weapons to attack their teachers, or they use it to attack another kid that was bullying them, or like just something like that, right? But a lot of these younger kids these days, they know about weapons. um and sometimes now they even have metal detectors in the schools now, even though, like, you think like, oh, why would a second grader bring a weapon to school, you know? But realistically, that's just how you have to think, because of today's society. A lot of these kids, they are playing like violent video games. And me personally, like, there's been a whole bunch of debates about video games, like violent video games like Call of Duty and like shooter type games making your kids violent and stuff like that. There's been like so many debates about that. So me personally, I would not let my kids play those types of games until they get to a certain age, and then they know what's right from wrong. But I feel like if you do have kids playing that at a really young age, or they're watching you play Call of Duty, and then they hear you say these things like, oh, I'm gonna shoot you, I'm gonna shoot your ass, I'm a you know, if you saying stuff like that around the kids, they're watching you, they're listening, because kids want to be just like their parents and copy everything they do. So if you're saying that around a younger kid, I feel like they could end up growing up not knowing what's real, what's fake, and then they start using those video game terms in day-to-day life. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of the kids, like, I know they get like suspended or like sent to the principal or something, like if the teacher hears talk about weapons and stuff like that, because that stuff is serious now. There's been like literally a school shooting every day, for the past how long, I don't know, right? And most of them are deadly. And then you have like teachers dying, kids dying, police officers, whatever. So people don't be taking that as jokes, right? And now that all that stuff is happening, and I actually work with kids now, and then I want to eventually go work in a real school or whatever, I'm not gonna take that, like, I'm gonna take that stuff seriously. Because if a little boy walks up and like, oh, I'm gonna shoot you, I'm gonna be like, what the fuck you just say? Go to the principals. I'm gonna take that seriously. I'm not just gonna laugh and be like, oh, you don't know what you talk about, ha ha ha. Like, no, because most of the times kids do know what they're talking about, especially if their parents give them like a phone and they're watching YouTube, they're watching any type of social media. A lot of kids know what they're talking about. You know, yeah. So it's like you think like 5 years old is young, but now that like technology has been introduced to like kids' childhood, like a lot of parents are just sticking their kids in front of a screen and they watch YouTube all day because parents don't want to like, entertain their kids, right? So you'd be surprised what kids actually know. Because I think when I first started working here, there was like kids, they were like cussing at each other. And it's not even like a certain group or whatever. It's literally the white kids who they look so innocent. And then like this little girl would come up to me and be like, she called me a bitch. And I was like, huh? It's like, she called me a bitch. I'm like, why does she know that word, first of all? Second of all, why do you know that word? Like, it just like, it sounds like they've been saying that, So it's just weird. Yeah, there's been a lot of like mass shootings like that just because kids are like absorbing everything they see, right? So obviously you're supposed to get rid of that mindset at a young age so that way kids don't grow up to be serial killers and like that type of thing. You're supposed to like teach them young what's right from wrong. You're supposed to teach them about like racism or like just like to simple things like respecting people, stuff like that. So that way when they grow older, they turn into normal human beings. Because if I had my kids saying that, like weird stuff about like shooting somebody or they should shoot themselves, is like, I would beat their ass. But a lot of parents these days, they don't beat their kids, obviously, because now it's like, I would say the world is like soft, but at the same time, like you shouldn't necessarily be beating your kids with a belt anyways, you know? But I used to be beat with a belt or with like a wooden paddle or whatever when I do stuff wrong. And then I didn't really like that because you become scared of your parents and stuff. But I feel like some disciplinary action needs to be taken, because I feel like it's better to like be scared of your parents than those parents who are like best friends with their kids, and then your kids are calling you like stupid head, poopy head. Like, your kids don't take you seriously, and then you're telling your kid like, oh, I'm gonna take your iPad away, and then your kid is just gonna laugh in your face because they're not scared of you, because you don't like necessarily like discipline them right. um yeah, exactly. Like, a lot of these kids, they get kicked out because of their bad behavior, and it's sad to say that a lot of them is unfortunately like the black kids, even though I'm not really in like a poor area right now. It's kind of like mixed at this daycare. But obviously a lot of these parents, they are single parents. Even the white kids have like single parents where they go to mom's house for a week, dad's house for a week, that type of thing. But we have a couple kids here. They have like really bad behavior problems, and I can't tell if their parents if it's because the parents are separated or maybe they just don't get discipline at home. But a lot of these kids, like there's this one little boy, he literally like screams at the teachers. He hits and kicks them, and I'm like, bro, if a kid hit me, I'm gonna try so hard not to hit the kid back, because what the fuck, you know? Because at my old daycare, we used to write people up for kicking the teachers and hitting the teachers, right? But at this place, it seems like they don't care. Like the kid would have been kicked out by now. But you have the teachers repeatedly getting hit and hurt and yelled at, and you don't want to like kick the kid out of the school because the kid, I think the parents pay like $1,000 a month, right? So they don't want to lose money. Yeah, we have kids that do that too. They throw stuff at the teachers, like either like, I think the little boy, he threw like a plate of food at the wall because he didn't want to eat the lunch. I guess he didn't like it or whatever. So he threw the plate at the wall. And I don't know if he was aiming for the wall or the teacher or whatever, but they didn't even like write it up. They didn't like kick him out. All they do is call his mom to come back, because I guess the mom is in the military and she's the one that disciplines him. And then the dad doesn't do anything, I guess. So the kid just doesn't take both of them seriously, right? Because he hasn't been kicked out yet. And I feel like that's the only way he's going to learn is if he's kicked out and then he never sees his friends again, So he's always the one screaming. He's like, no, I don't want to take a nap. No. He's like, he literally screams, and it's like blood-curdling screams at 8 in the morning. And then they always have to call his mom to come get him. And then I have seen her discipline him. Like, she takes him in the bathroom, and then she beats his ass. And, she's like, oh, you better listen, blah, blah. You better go to sleep and stop waking up your friends, And I've seen other times, like right now, I'm on my break right now. So I'm parked outside the building. And then I'll see her, like, she brings him outside. And then she cusses his ass out outside. And she's like, you don't want to make me call your daddy, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know how annoying it is? I got to come pick you up every day because you're yelling and hitting and kicking your teachers. What the fuck? Like, she be cussing him out, yelling in his face. And then he goes back in there and then he's crying like a maniac, So I'm like, either way, she's probably tried everything to discipline him, but that's just how he is. Like, I feel like some kids are just like, they're just naturally bad kids, and then you just give up on them because they just won't fucking listen. And then next thing you know, they just grow up and they end up like going to jail or whatever, something like that. But yeah, a lot of them do have psychological problems. So it's like, I think half of those kids probably got autism or like ADHD, ADD. What is it, like attention deficit disorder, like where they just naturally behave bad or like whatever, right? I'm pretty sure literally more than half the class has that. And I don't know if it's just like this generation, or it's maybe like it's because their parents are younger raising them and they just put them in front of a screen. I don't know what it is, right? But yeah, a lot of these kids have issues. Like this one little girl, she like jumps up at nap time. She starts to run around the class, and then she calls me mommy, and then she starts to like hit me and try to kick me and whatever. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Or like sometimes she'll ask me for like a hug without asking, and the kids will like reach up and like you know how like kids don't see stuff in a sexual way, so it's like she'll try to like touch my chest or like my butt or whatever. I'm like, girl, what are you doing? I'm not your parent. Like, you can't just be touching all over me like that. And that's another thing too, because another boy does that too. He tries to like ask me for hugs, so then he's like touching me inappropriately, but he doesn't know that it's inappropriate because he's like a little boy, So I gotta tell him, I'm like, no, you can't be touching people like that. And then he doesn't take no for an answer, so he keeps like trying to fight me for a hug. And I'm like, bro, imagine when this little boy is older and he's in a situation where he like some girl doesn't want him to do something with him or whatever, and then she's saying no, then he doesn't take that for an answer because he doesn't know about consent or whatever, just because he didn't learn it from when he was younger. And next thing you know, he's out here like doing weird shit to women, So I'm saying it all really starts at a young age, but there's only so much the teachers can do if the dad isn't like doing anything at home. Because it depends. Like, some of the parents actually want their kids to change, or like, yeah, they know that their kid is bad as hell and they actually do want their kid to change, so they come to school and they're like, oh, what can we do at home, what can we do, like, do you have any advice, and blah blah blah, right? And then the teachers give them advice, and it's up to them if they listen to the teacher or not. But a lot of them like literally just pick up their kid and go home, or they drop off their kid and go home. Like they don't talk to the teachers like, oh, how is my kid doing in your class? Is he fighting with people? Like, does he get along with people? Is he listening? Is he learning? So a lot of these parents don't care. And then that results in their kid having bad behavior because they literally don't give a fuck about their kid. But yeah, a lot of these kids, like, I know it's normal for like little boys like wrestle each other or like jump on each other, tackle each other because they watch their dads who watch football, UFC videos, like that type of stuff. So little boys naturally tackle each other, but it becomes weird when they start touching each other's butts, right? And I have that situation too where this one kid, he keeps mentioning like, oh, look at my booty, I'm shaking my booty, blah blah blah, and they think booty is a funny word, like they think everything is funny these days, but they're not realizing that it's like inappropriate to like shake, like rub your butts on each other when y'all are going to the bathroom. Like that shit is weird, and then like I think a parent found out because she said that her son came home and she was like, yeah, my son was talking about his friend rubbed his booty on his. What the fuck does that mean? And the mom is pissed off because she's like, what is going on at this school, right? And I'm like, bro, I don't know. Like we don't really watch the kids when they go to the bathroom. I can't be watching your kid every 24/7. I got 20 other kids to watch. Like what the fuck, but it's just like some kids are just weird like that. And it's like it's hard to explain to them because if we tell them like, oh, like don't do that at school, you can't touch each other's butts, don't say the word booty or poop and like that type of stuff, but it's like the parents don't really reinforce it at home when they go home. So then it's like annoying. So it's like whatever we tell them at school, we'll tell them like, don't say that word, you'll get in trouble. But then they go home, they probably say it a million times and their parents aren't making them get in trouble. So they come back to school and they think it's okay just because their parents think it's okay, yeah, exactly. A lot of parents these days just basically hand the kid a phone in general to calm them down. Me personally, like I think this daycare, like, or daycares in general, only allow like 20 minutes of screen time for the kids because we have like a tablet that we use to like take attendance and like whatever. So sometimes they'll watch like educational videos on there, right? But at the same time, that's kind of like my last resort because if I have like 20 kids running around crazy while I'm trying to get the lunch ready or something like that, I don't want them running around crazy and then they're really loud, giving me a headache. So that's like the only time I turn the screen on, and I put on like Magic School Bus or something like educational, and then they all like tune into the screen because they're addicted to screens, and then I can get the lunch ready, and then I just turn off the screen when they're all sitting down and quiet. So I would only use a screen in like a big group setting, but when it comes to like my own parenting, like I wouldn't give my kid any screens until they're like maybe 3 years old. So it's like I'm not gonna put my kid in front of a screen, but I'm gonna like just introduce it like slowly because you don't want to get them like addicted to it. But yeah, it's like that's like, what's it called, that girl who does videos for babies, like Miss Rachel or whatever, how she talks in a baby voice or whatever to try and get the kids to learn and pay attention and entertain their kids. So a lot of the parents, they basically like put it on the screen and then their baby watches the screen, but in reality you're supposed to be copying what Miss Rachel is doing. Like this, like put the screen over there and then you are like in front of your baby, and then if she's like, hi, hello, like you're supposed to be mouthing those words so it looks like it's coming from your mouth, and you're supposed to do what she's doing on the screen to entertain your kid. They're not just supposed to be like sitting in front of the screen by themselves. But yeah, a lot of these teachers, it's like it's hard because sometimes like teaching is a good job because obviously you get to know the kids, you love the kids, treat them like your own kids, whatever, but it really ruins it when the kids aren't disciplined and then they're like hitting you, throwing stuff, trying to fight other kids, saying weird stuff, and like they just don't listen in general. So I would probably do teaching long term if they actually listen or whatever. It just depends where you go though, because right now I'm kind of like at an underprivileged daycare type shit, where it's like it's not like rich people will be sending their kids here, right? Um, it's basically literally just like, I don't know, they're not really learning for real, but it's like a lot of these kids are bad, you know, coming from single parent households, and then we got to deal with these kids, right? Whereas at my last daycare, it was like kind of like a richer type daycare, but there was still some bad kids there, but some of them just won't listen. But it really depends ultimately on like the class that you have, like, of the kids. And yeah, that too, it doesn't pay either, right? And I feel like it's just so weird, because obviously like doctors and lawyers got to get paid a lot because you're doing important things, but I feel like teachers is like one of the least paid professions, and obviously like it's definitely doesn't pay enough depending on what state you're in. But I feel like teachers should definitely be getting paid that much, like especially if you're teaching like fucking chemistry and like geometry and like just like hard ass shit like that. Like teachers should be getting paid 10 times more, because instead of just dealing with one kid like one-on-one like the parents be doing at home, we got to deal with 20 of your stupid kids, you know? And a lot of them don't know anything. And that's the thing too, like since the kids watch all these screens and stuff like that, they don't know anything either. They don't know how to spell their name, ABCs, tie their shoes, zip up their jackets. A lot of them don't dress themselves because their parents are dressing themselves. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing? And it's just like embarrassing to see, because these kids are like 5 years old, like literally almost 6, right? So we have to change them for water day, because they basically just spray, like jump into sprinklers and stuff, and then they're wearing their bathing suits, and then they gotta change afterwards, right? But a lot of these kids don't know how to like take off their own shirt, put on their underwear. Like even the girls, I'm telling them, I'm like, you need to hold the underwear on the sides, and then you need to bend down, and then you need to step into into the leg holes, right? And they're like, how do I do that? My mommy dresses me. I'm like, what the fuck? And then I be telling them, I'm like, go home, tell mommy and daddy that you want to practice putting on your clothes by yourself, because this is ridiculous. um I mean, I don't know, part of me is like, I be considering going back to retail. That's how bad it is. Like these kids, the way these kids act, that's what I'm saying. Like teaching is a good job, but I want to actually like teach kids. Like I want to teach them, like, you know, the colors, how to write their names, how to read, you know, that type of stuff. But you can't teach the kids if you have to spend time disciplining them, because in my opinion, disciplining should take place at home. Like the parents should teach you how to like sit still, listen, listen to understand, and like, you know, that type of stuff. um So it's like, I feel like if that is done at home, then they could actually come here and we could actually teach them, you know? But if your parents don't do shit at home, then it's like you got to come to school, and then the teachers have to discipline them. So if we're disciplining them, you can't teach kids if you're trying to discipline them. You know, we got to tell you to sit down 100 times, you know, but you have to sit down to do the activity. But yeah, $15 an hour. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it is for a teacher in most places. But I think where I'm in, it's like $20 an hour. Um, I'm in like an underprivileged type daycare. Like they don't have necessarily like the best food or like the best toys or like that type stuff. So that's why these kids are like, they just don't listen. But yeah, I be having like a migraine every day I leave after work. And the thing is, I'm working with another teacher, so luckily she's like a strict teacher, so she gets them in line while I, like, you know, set up the tables for the activities, or I get the lunch ready and I put their beds down, stuff like that. Like she keeps them in check. But then the last 2 hours of my shift is the worst. Like after my break right now, the last 2 hours is the worst, because I'm with another teacher who doesn't listen to me, and she doesn't know what the fuck she's doing half the time. So then the kids are running around like crazy, and it's really hard for me to control the kids too, because my voice is like so low, and the kids can't hear me, and I gotta keep repeating myself. And I've actually had like throat problems from doing this job for so long now. And I just be hella tired when I get home. Yeah, exactly. It's just a mess. I just can't take these kids and what they be doing. And then it's basically like free birth control, because I be thinking, I'm like, damn, like, imagine if I had kids, would they turn out like this? And it just like, it helps like being a teacher, because I can see like what parenting styles work and what don't. And I be telling myself, I'm like, yeah, if I have to send my kid to daycare, I'm gonna make sure I'm like interactive with them, and like, you know, listen to the teacher, like, you know, for advice. And like, or technically in a perfect world, I would never send my kid to a daycare. I would probably homeschool them until they're like 5 years old. But in this day and age, you can't really have like a stay-at-home parent, because rent is so expensive and stuff like that. So it's like both parents gotta work. So then where's your kid gonna go? You know? Yeah, exactly. Like, that's like these kids are just so bad. Like, some of them are like cute, but it's like the ones that listen is literally like 2 out of 20 kids that listen. You know? So I'll be like treating those kids. I'm like, yeah, like, I don't know. Those kids are cute because they listen, but I don't like the bad kids. Cause I've had this other friend. She would tell me that she likes the bad kids, because then she gets to like teach them how to do right and teach them how to listen and like that type of stuff. But I don't like the bad kids because they don't listen. Like, I don't want to reward bad behavior or like baby them and stuff like that. So it's just a lot. But I just be thinking like, it's literally free birth control, because how these kids act, it just makes me not want to have kids, because I'm afraid that my kid is going to turn out like that, right? And I don't want to be the teacher who ends up having like a stupid kid or a shitty kid or bad kid, you know? So I just don't want to be in that situation. And the economy is terrible, and kids are expensive and blah, blah, blah. So I don't even know if I want kids for real. But then I'm like, I don't know. I always wanted to be a mom, so we'll see what happens. But who knows? It's looking like no so far. Wow, that is crazy. That's so expensive. Yeah, exactly. These kids, once they find stuff out, or you tell them not to do something, they do it. Yeah, I don't know. I know it's like when you have your own kids, you're only dealing with one kid, but I feel like I would just be too scared to mess up my kid. And just, or when they do go to kindergarten, even if I spent like 4 years homeschooling them instead of sending them to daycare, it's like if they do end up going to public school for kindergarten through high school, they're still gonna learn stuff from other kids, right? You could teach them right from wrong all you want, but that can be erased so fast once they start interacting with other kids, and like they learn what's funny and what's not, right? Because you could tell your kid like, oh, don't say the word booty, like don't say all these bad words, and then they go to school, they learn more bad words from the other boys, and then once they learn that like the boys think that they're funny, they start acting like class clown, and they start being bad on purpose just to get their friends to laugh, you know? So it's like, whatever you do, technically like their environment is the one that shapes them, you know? So it just depends where you are, where you live, what kids are around, who you put them around, like that type of stuff. Like, it just sucks that you could do everything you want to do, or even like you can keep them away from cell phones and technology, but then the minute they get on the school bus in middle school, everyone's going to be pulling out their phones, going to be on YouTube, going to be on the internet, showing them some weird shit, you know? And then your kid is going to be like, your kid's not even going to tell you, because they're not supposed to be on the phone. Because imagine you don't give your kid a phone until they're like 15, and then they go on the school bus, all these other kids have phones, you know? So it's like you can't even prevent stuff from happening, which also sucks a lot. So, I don't know. It's just a lot to think about. And yeah, even the music they listen to, literally everything that they listen to and watch, and like stuff that you teach them can be erased in 5 seconds. Like, that's just how quick it works, unfortunately. But I gotta go back inside. Nice live today because I ate my food hella fast. But yeah, I'll see y'all soon. Bye.